Hello, North Country, and welcome to another edition of Fox on the Run, the program where we talk with interesting people in the North Country. I'm Foxy Gagnon. Today we're at Melissa Penfield Park in Plattsburgh to talk about sports. One of the things that North Country Cable Network loves to do, and you've been a viewer many times, it's youth sports. And this is where I first encountered this young man years ago playing youth sports, county baseball, for example. And I recall him, a lot of arms, a lot of legs at that time, but you could tell he was an excellent athlete. And when these youths play our county sports, our school sports, and then go on to a career involving sports, that's a little extra excitement for us. Today our guest is Jeff Stoller. Grew up in Cliff Haven. A story, I think, of local boy makes good. And he's got a very interesting story to tell. Jeff, we ran into each other by accident a few days ago. Boy, it was my lucky break. Welcome back to the North Country.
Well, thanks, Fox. I appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
Tell our viewers, for those who don't know the name of Jeff Stoller, tell our viewers where you grew up and a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, yeah, I grew up in Cliff Haven, just outside of the city of Plattsburgh. Grew up playing in the town of Plattsburgh, Clinton County Youth Bureau sports, in baseball. Whatever I could. Baseball, of course, was the sport I was probably excelled in, and ended up going to school at Mount Assumption Institute, Seton Catholic now, and got to enjoy playing football for Paul O'Connell and basketball for Dr. Ard and Joe Staves, who's now the athletic director at Plattsburgh High School, and got to play baseball for Pat Goodell, who's now I think at Plattsburgh High School as well, and it just really enjoyed it, and never looked down the road in terms of thinking that it was something going into athletics was something I was going to do for a living, but it just opportunities came about, and it just worked out that way. But I've really enjoyed it.
Let's reminisce a little bit more about those county sports, such a big part of so many young guys' program, young girls' youth career. What were other sports? You played baseball. Were there other sports you played as well? Baseball was such a huge focus for me growing up. But we did play basketball. I remember getting to go to basketball camp at Potsdam and at the University of Vermont, and that was enjoyable. But really in terms of the county, just grew up playing baseball from 8 years old. I mean. Grasshopper baseball through Pee Wee, through Pony, into high school, and then got to play 2 years for Altona in the Champlain Valley League, which was enjoyable too. And where was Cliff Haven playing their home baseball games in the summer? Where did they play?
They played right at the. We had still have a park right in the across the road in Cliff Haven. They had two or three fields and basketball courts and tennis courts, and so we played all our home games, from 8 years old right up through, I think, 15, 16, played right there in the park.
Do you remember some of your summer coaches?
I do. I ended up playing for my father quite a bit, and it's always difficult to finding adults that can afford to give up their time for free to coach during the summer and during vacations, and that was always a challenge, I think throughout the county. So I did play for my father quite a bit, and I remember playing for Coach Rock out in Peru, and Herman Matlock I played for, especially in and I don't know if they still have these around or not, but they have the All-Star tournaments growing up, and that was the one opportunity where we'd always get to the kids in the county could come and play against the kids in the Plattsburgh City Little League, and that was fun. I remember playing for Herman Matlock for quite a few years. His kids played here too.
High school sports then, and baseball especially. You were at MAI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played for actually probably the coach, and in fact I wrote him a letter about a year or so ago. The coach I think was probably the most influential in high school was Jeff Chase, who I last I knew at least was a local attorney here in town, and one of the things I'll always remember playing for Coach Chase in ninth grade, we had at MA we had a good team, and at the time the junior varsity at CVAC had a JV championship, and
Yes.
and we had made it to the championship game against Plattsburgh High School and had, I think, at least a 50-50 shot to win. And I remember Coach Chase decided that in the championship game, he was going to play everybody. He was going to let every single young man on the team be a part of what it was like to be in that championship game. And so, I think there were about 17 players, and all 17 players played at least 1 to 2 innings of that championship game. And we lost a game that probably, if he'd have just played the starters, we could have won. But I remember every kid was happy on that team, and at the end, everyone felt like they were part of having played in that championship. And that's something I'll always remember as a varsity baseball coach. We won 4 conference championships, and I remember when we'd get to the conference tournament championship game, I would always, around those last couple games, try to do whatever we could to get everybody in and make them all feel like they were part of being in a championship. And I'll always remember that. That was very influential, and I'll always appreciate what he did.
Very well said. What was there about baseball? Why do you like baseball so much?
I think it's because, in all honesty, I was never really a great athlete, and baseball was something I enjoyed and I worked really hard at. And I remember at age 7 in Cliff Haven being probably the most uncoordinated kid in the entire neighborhood, and I think my father wasn't going to have any of that. So every single day he took me out, and we would throw or we would hit every day. And by the time I was actually just a year later, I was 8 and played grasshopper baseball and did really well. And it was a sport where someone who didn't have a ton of athletic ability, if you worked really hard, you could excel. And so I worked hard and enjoyed it and got to be pretty decent at it. And basketball was a sport where I didn't have great speed, didn't shoot really well, and so it was I think my potential was so limited, I think, that baseball was something where if I worked really hard I could excel, and so I did, and I think that's why I enjoyed it more than anything else.
What was your position that you saw as your position for baseball?
I remember when I was really young playing second base, but and then realizing even at a young age that I didn't have a lot of great agility to be in the infield, but had a decent arm, and I was a pitcher and catcher all the way through, and I think up in ninth grade, one of the things that Jeff Chase was really good about at MAI, I had a really bad injury at the beginning of the season, my ninth grade year at MAI, where I had slipped up at the plate and had stretched the muscle in my leg out that it actually had ripped the bone apart in my knee. And I think after that point, I never recovered enough of the strength in my leg to be a really good pitcher. And I think the potential of my pitching career kind of faded, and I was still a catcher. And I was not afraid to get hit, not afraid to get hurt, and so pretty decent eye-hand coordination. So catching was a decent position for me, and got to Gary Butler, I think, who's still involved in sports near, I think maybe at Beekmantown, brought me up to baseball camp at Lemoyne in Syracuse, and got to work with some really good coaches up there as a catcher, and that ended up being the position that I excelled in. So,
well, high school sports came and went. And for a lot of us, that's the end of our involvement with sports entirely. But what was next? What happened next for you?
Well, I went to college right here at Plattsburgh State and graduated in '92. Got a bachelor's degree in English. Decided I had some interest in teaching, so my future wife still had another year or so of school left at Plattsburgh State. So I ended up getting a master's degree in education, getting my teacher certification here in New York. And when she finished, she wanted to go to graduate school for counseling, and decided on going to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. So, I just started applying for jobs down there, and when we moved, I got a job as an English teacher, 11th grade English teacher, and assistant varsity baseball coach, and head JV basketball coach at Oak Ridge Military Academy, which is in Greensboro, North Carolina, not too far from Wake Forest University.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't this a real hotbed of sports?
It is. Actually, Greensboro is the headquarters for the Atlantic Coast Conference, so we're right in the heart of the ACC. Even the school I'm at now is only 15 minutes from there. But yeah, we're about 15 minutes from Wake Forest, and then you've got several other Division I schools in the area. And then we're 45 minutes from Duke, Carolina, and NC State. So yeah, it's for athletics, especially collegiate athletics, it's a great place to be.
So that was a good catch to get a job there. Yeah. She wanted to be there. She'd been accepted at the grad school. So one way or another, you were going to get something in that area.
Yeah, it was it was getting to be crunch time, so I was getting a little nervous. But yeah, in fact, I'd gotten a call on our honeymoon, gotten a call to come down and interview. So we flew back from Hawaii, and I drove down to Albany right away and jumped on a plane and went down and interviewed. And then as luck would have it, the very next year, the head varsity baseball coach retired, and so I stepped into his place and got to be a head varsity baseball coach pretty early. So.
Now wait a minute, Jeff. You make it sound so easy. You stepped in and did it. Now, how did they know that you had an interest? How did they know you knew anything at all about baseball? You're an English teacher. English teachers don't know about baseball.
Yeah, it was an unusual combination. But when I interviewed, I'd expressed a lot of interest in wanting to get involved with coaching there, and there were some good opportunities. So the head baseball coach came in at the end of my interview, and I met with him, and he hired me to be his assistant. And then when he retired the next year, the athletic director at the time approached me about taking over as the head coach, and I mean, yeah, it took about 10 seconds to give him an answer. Yeah.
So let's talk about Oak Ridge Military Academy, is it called?
Yeah.
Okay, in Greensboro. What size of a school is it? What type of school is it?
It's a military boarding school. It's actually the military school for the state of North Carolina, and it's not a huge school. It's like I said, there's probably 70% boarding students, 30% are day students, and their enrollment's right around 300. And it's about it was the first co-ed military school in the country, but it's probably about 80% male and 20% female, but had both male and female athletic programs.
But co-ed classes.
Co-ed classes, yeah. Like I said, I was there 9 years, and my wife is still the counselor there, and it's an interesting place, but it certainly gave me great opportunities in terms of getting a start in high school athletics. So, and especially in baseball.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, how many would you get to try out for the team? How many would you keep? Did you go through cuts?
Yeah, we did. It was a difficult situation in that, right after school they have military time, so there was practices couldn't start until late in the day, so it was tough to be able to do a lot in terms of a JV program. So what I did, I had a lot of kids out. I would have anywhere from the first year when I was the assistant coach, we didn't have a ton of kids out, but my next year as a head coach we ended up with about 35, and then my second year we were getting around between 45 and 50 kids out for the team, and so it became quite competitive. And of course we were able to get kids from all over the country because it was a boarding school.
Yeah.
So I had probably in every given year I probably had no more than 40 to 50% of my players were from North Carolina. I ended up with a lot from New York and a lot from California and Georgia and Florida towards the end as well. So the tryouts were difficult. It became fairly competitive.
And was it in a type of baseball conference, high school conference, where some of these players would go on and play college ball? Was it on that caliber?
Yeah, I've had actually 4 or 5 kids go on and play for the Citadel. I had one went on and play for the University of Michigan, a couple for UNC Wilmington, which are Division I schools, and we had one kid who walked on at Duke, and then we had a lot have gone on to play, Division II, Division III baseball and junior college baseball. So that's been fun.
And you did this for 9 years, is it?
Yeah. Until right up until this was my last summer, made the jump to move to a different school, and so this is my first year not coaching varsity baseball, and it was the new job was enjoyable, but it was difficult, especially seeing my old team come and play against my new school and having watched the kids, and that was a difficult decision. But
and we're going to talk more about that. You're watching Fox on the Run. I'm Foxy Gagnon with Jeff Stoller, who grew up in Cliff Haven, right just down the road in Cliff Haven, and has ended up with quite an interesting story to tell involving coaching, and some things that are going now are very interesting as well. We ran into each other a few days ago and decided before you head back to North Carolina to sit for an interview. Eric Gagnon is on camera for us, and we're at Melissa Penfield Park right here in Plattsburgh. Did you play games on this area? Was this set up then?
Yeah, I remember playing in I'm trying to remember if it was either a Pee-wee or a Pony 13 to 15-year-old All-Star tournament. We played. It was strange. I think at the time it was a combination team from Peru, Saranac, and Ausable Valley that Herman Matlock had put together, and so we entered a tournament that was played here. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great facility.
To get back to North Carolina, now you were an English teacher, but that changed along the way too, or have you still been an English teacher?
No, after my third or fourth year there, I think it was after my third year, our athletic director moved on, and the school president brought me in and asked me about my interest in taking over as the athletic director, which at the time I had very little interest in doing. And I remember I told him, I'd really prefer that you advertise and find somebody I enjoy just teaching English and coaching varsity baseball. And they came back to me again and said, well, we'd really like you to consider taking it over. And at the time, I was on my way up to Colby College to visit my sister, who was, my sister Kirsten was playing softball and volleyball up at Colby College. And I said, well, I'm leaving to head up there for October break. When I come back, if you haven't, been able to, if you decide you didn't want to advertise and you haven't been able to find somebody you want, I'll consider doing it at least on an interim basis. And I got back, and I don't think they'd even made much of an attempt to look. So I ended up agreeing to do it for that year. And then it was a difficult year because at the time in many of our sports it was fairly well known in the area that there were some coaches coaching there that really probably shouldn't be working with kids, whether it be a lack of skill, lack of educational background, just that shouldn't have been involved probably in high school coaching, and so it was difficult. Ended up having to terminate about 60% of the coaching staff at the end of the year, and that was part of my agreeing to stay on. Was I would agree to stay on as the athletic director if I could kind of basically develop the athletic program further and make some changes and bring in some different coaches, and they had agreed to do that. So that was probably the most difficult thing to go through. And because some of them were people I was friends with, and a lot of them were outside coaches who weren't on the faculty, but there were a couple who were, and just probably in terms of if we really wanted to build a solid athletic program there, we just had to make some changes, I felt. And so having to terminate that many people, it got a lot of publicity too at the time, especially within our conference, and that was difficult. But once we did that and brought in some different people and some more faculty coaches, we really developed a pretty good athletic program over a period of time.
Now, you still seem to me like you're an 18-year-old guy. I know you're not, but how old were you when you were put in this position as a new athletic director and having to deal with these problems? How old were you?
I was about 25, I believe.
Young.
Yeah, and that was difficult because there were a lot of coaches that had been there a while, had been coaching other places a while, that were in their 40s and 50s, and this kid comes in, he's going to tell me I can't coach here anymore, and it was a difficult year, but some of the coaches and some of my friends were there were supportive, and my wife was very supportive, and that was really important. But it was a difficult time. But I just I thought, well, down the road it's gonna make a difference, and it's gonna be a good thing. And certainly it turned out to be. Developed a really good athletic program. They're still very strong.
Well, the Oak Ridge Military Academy shirts are in the back of your closet now. I noticed you've got a different shirt on. It says Bishop McGinnis Athletics.
Yeah.
So there's been a change, and update us.
Yeah, last summer I received a phone call saying that Bishop McGinnis High School, which is a large private Catholic high school just 15 minutes from Oak Ridge, was looking for a new athletic director. They had just built, the school had been around a while, but they had just built a brand new multi-million-dollar campus, new football stadium, new basketball gym, and Krispy Kreme Donut Corporation is headquartered right in Winston-Salem, and they had paid for the gym, and there was a lot of funding available, and so it was a good situation. They'd asked me to apply and meet with the search committee, and it's kind of thing where I was still really happy at Oak Ridge, and my wife was there, and I thought, well, you go and interview and see what happens, but probably didn't have a lot of incentive to make a change. So I was actually in Plattsburgh at the time. I got visiting last summer at the time I got the call. So we drove back and went and met with the search committee, and I knew there were I knew even in the Raleigh and Charlotte area there were some experienced ADs who had applied for the job and didn't know where I stood. But then they called when I was up in Boston, and they called and left a message for me to call, and it offered me the position, and had actually went and had basically decided after a lot of thought I was going to turn it down and stay where I was, and went in and met with the principal a couple times, and he called, and each time it was interesting how private school athletics work in terms of hiring. Each time I'd kind of look to say, well, I'm going to go ahead and stay where I was. They would come back and make it more difficult to turn down. Finally, to the point where decided it was very, very difficult, but decided to go ahead and make the jump, and and then head over to Bishop McGuinness. There are only actually 3 Catholic high schools in the entire state of North Carolina.
Wow.
Unlike New York, where there's just tons, and it's basically divided up. There's one Catholic high school for the Raleigh-Durham Chapel Hill area and east, and then there's one for Central North Carolina, which is Bishop McGuinness, and then there's one for Charlotte Catholic for Charlotte area. Charlotte area west to the Tennessee border, and so it basically divided into 3 very large Catholic high schools. So, but it's a good opportunity, and I've enjoyed it so far.
You have students there from a wide radius, then?
Yeah, it's not a boarding school, but yeah, some of them will commute from a pretty far distance. So.
And what size of school is it?
It's our capacity at this point is with the new facility is 850 actually, and we're approaching that pretty quickly.
Okay, so you're the athletic director, Bishop McGuinness, Catholic High School, is it called? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you coaching?
I'm not, and that was part of the difficulty was in terms of we have so many different athletic programs, all the same programs that that the public schools have. Because even in North Carolina, you don't see 2,000, 3,000 enrollment public schools. They're run from anywhere from 450 to about 1,500. So we have everything. I mean, even right down to lacrosse and fencing. So there's so many programs and such a large coaching staff to manage that for me to be able to coach, I felt was just going to and run the athletic program was just going to be too difficult. So
Mm-hmm.
so no, this is my first year not coaching.
Well, I don't want to embarrass you, but there must be something about you as a person that these schools have liked to want you at the military academy and to want to keep you there. And then Bishop McGuinness, can you put a finger on it? I mean,
No,
what is it about this kid from the North Country?
I don't know. I mean, it's just I've enjoyed working with I've had a lot of, I will say, I think a lot of it, I've had a lot of luck. I've had some really good administrators to work with. I've had the fellow athletic directors in the conference that I've been in have been great. And I've been fortunate to have a lot of really good kids. And in baseball, certainly you can coach your way to decent teams, but a lot of it is dependent. If you have good kids and good ball players, you're going to win, and if you don't, you're not. And I've been fortunate enough to have been blessed with a lot of really great kids, great young men and women, and some good ball players.
Well, maybe that's one of the qualities that they like, is that you don't take the credit unto yourself, is that you kind of just dished out the credit all around to everybody else, which was kind of you. What would your players say? I mean, I could ask you what kind of coach you are, but kind of envision yourself as having played for Jeff Stoller, the coach. What do you think your players would say? What kind of coach is he? If I had a couple of your guys sitting here, what would they say about you?
I don't know. I think most of them. I'd like to think, I guess, that I was a player's coach. I tried to make things enjoyable. There's a lot of practice. A lot of practice hours, a lot of, even more so than the CVAC, a lot of travel, because we travel all over North Carolina to play, and travel out of state as well too, into Virginia and into South Carolina, and so you have a lot of long road trips. And we tried to make it. I think our team was very disciplined, and I think our teams were disciplined. I think that's why we had some really good seasons. But we tried to make it, along with my assistant coaches, tried to make it really enjoyable. Actually, one of my assistant coaches, another North Country guy, born and raised in Redford, Don Perrott, who was goes to a Parrott service station here in Plattsburgh. Member of the Parrott family actually was my assistant coach at Oak Ridge, one of my assistant coaches. But we tried to make it enjoyable, and I think the kids they worked hard and they were disciplined. But I think they had a good time, and they enjoyed baseball, and they enjoyed coming to practice, and enjoyed playing in games. And I think that's why they did well and why they had some good seasons. And
as you know, here in the North Country, the baseball season might kick off in April if we're lucky, but you're inside the gymnasium. You hope to get outside sometime in May, and by early June the season's over. What's the baseball season for high school where you in North Carolina?
We start in February actually, and we might, if we get some rough weather, we'll start out inside. But we had last year we had a scrimmage game there in the latter part of February. So we run from usually late February, beginning of March, right up until about state playoffs finish up somewhere around the middle of May.
How many games in, let's say, your conference or whatever you would call it?
In conference, we'll play. We play in the conference I'm in now. We'll play everybody 3 times, and so we'll play about anywhere from 18 games in conference, and then we'll play non-conference games. We'll travel, play a lot of the big Charlotte schools and the bigger Raleigh and Durham schools, and then we'll even travel out to the eastern part of North Carolina, where Catfish Hunter and Gaylord Perry and all those guys played and grew up, and they play just outstanding. Some of these small towns in the eastern part of the state, they just play great baseball, and you'll see some of the big Charlotte schools or schools our size go in, and we're actually the 4th largest private school in North Carolina, and we'll go in sometimes and play some of these little teeny eastern North Carolina schools, and they're just, the level of baseball is just unbelievable.
Are the fields similar to Lefty Wilson Field that we have here?
Yeah,
or is
some
it
are.
More stadium-like?
It depends on where you go and which schools want to pump more money into baseball, and I would say Lefty Wilson would be equivalent to a lot of the field. A lot of the private schools in North Carolina are building brand new facilities, so they're building state-of-the-art baseball facilities, and so some of them are very well developed, but some of them are similar to Lefty Wilson, and some wouldn't be as close, I think, to as good a facility as this one.
You're watching Fox on the Run. We're going to talk a little bit more personal side. He's mentioned his wife a few times, and certainly wives play a key role. They have to be very patient if you're the wife of a coach. So we're going to talk some more. Eric Gagnon's on camera. You're watching Fox on the Run. We're talking with Jeff Stoller, who grew up in the North Country and now an athletic director at Bishop McGuinness Catholic High School in North Carolina. Jeff, you mentioned your wife. Let's talk some family now. Tell us about her.
My wife Amy, we actually started dating in high school at Peru High School, and both of us went to college here at Plattsburgh State, and I finished graduate school here, and we moved into, we got married and moved to North Carolina for her to go to graduate school, and so yeah, we've been married for 9 years, but have been together for much more than that, almost 16, 17 years. So.
And what's her family name?
Her family is Santor. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course her family, the Bakers and the Barkums, and good North Country names. There's a large North Country family. So, yeah. But it's fun to come back and get to visit with them, and it gives us an excuse to come back to Plattsburgh and the North Country.
And you say she is a guidance counselor.
Yeah, she's actually a director of counseling and guidance at Oak Ridge Military Academy, and she's a marriage family therapist as well. But the being at a military boarding school and everything that goes on there certainly keeps her tied up full time for sure. We
mentioned your dad. Tell us about the family that you grew up in.
Oh, we came to Plattsburgh early. I want to say it was 1973, 74, somewhere in there. My parents were college professors here at Plattsburgh State for a number of years, up until only probably 7-8 years ago. I may be off on that. Can't remember. My mother was offered a job as a professor in the medical school at the University of Florida, so they went to Gainesville for a couple years, and then she was offered an endowed chair in the sociology department at Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, and so they moved there and have been there since. And winters are similar probably to the North Country, but they've really enjoyed it and get to visit with them quite often as well.
See if their names ring a bell with our viewers. Their names are
Eleanor and Michael Stoller.
Okay. And lived in Cliff Haven the entire time that they were in Plattsburgh. Mm-hmm. They were in Cliff Haven.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, now you're in an area where there's minor league baseball all around you, all around. Do you get to many minor league games?
We do. I have not yet been out over to see a Durham Bulls game, which I want to try. I want to try to do this season, but we are in Greensboro. Winston-Salem has a minor league single-A team, and Greensboro, where we live, has it's been the single-A team for the New York Yankees right up until this year when they end up switching to the Florida Marlins. But it's minor league baseball is just so much fun, and it's affordable. Tickets are $7 or $8, and you can bring an entire family there, or if you want to bring your youth baseball team there, it's really affordable, and it's fun. It's a blast, and I miss going to Expos games a little bit. We're not too far from Atlanta, but minor league baseball is just so much fun, and there's just every 20 minutes driving down Interstate 40, you run across the minor league stadium. So, but gosh, you get to see stars of the future. And I remember when the Yankees a few years back had 8 guys in the All-Star game. 7 of the 8 had played in Greensboro in Single A. So it's minor league baseball. It's just a blast to watch.
Jeff, wouldn't it be something if we were down there in North Carolina with our cameras at some minor league stadium, and I looked up and there you were in the stands eating a hot dog? Wouldn't that be something?
That would, yeah. And we go to quite a few games. We'll probably go anywhere to 7 or 8 games during the summer.
You buy a hot dog at the game?
No, I generally will eat before we get there. But even the food at minor league stadiums is affordable. So you'll see a lot of families enjoy weekends.
We do our what is it, Eric? 3rd inning, 4th inning? What inning is it? 4th inning, top of the 4th inning, we do our hot dog survey. And we rate the hot dog, we run the camera, and we stand in line and order, because the service counts. Yeah. And we stand in line, we order, and the camera's running, and we bring the hot dog over, check out the condiments, very important. And we have a lot of fun with that at the minor league parks. And as we go, the 5 nights or 6 nights, we have a score sheet, and then we crown the hot dog champion at the end of the road trip.
It sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it sounds like fun, doesn't it? Okay. So you're here on a break. You came here on a break, and you're going to get back to work. Like in the summertime, what are some of the things that are on your mind as an athletic director at Bishop McGinnis?
Everything goes year-round. We have team camps for almost every single sport. Our basketball team, girls team, just finished team camp at UNC Charlotte, and our basketball teams, they basically go during the summer and compete as a team against other high schools at universities, have these different team camps. I'm not sure, I can't remember if they've had that up here in the area or not, but basically your entire team goes.
Now, is that paid for though by the individual?
Yeah, the kids, the coach will collect up the money from the kids because most of them are overnight. But it's great. I was over at UNC Greensboro watching our varsity boys basketball team compete at team camp, and they must have played about 23 games in a 3-4 day period, it seemed. And our varsity girls were at UNC Charlotte, and it's our volleyball team and soccer team. All of them are going to, lacrosse. Everybody goes to team camp. So I try and show up to different colleges and make appearances there. And our football team will be going to team camp in July. And so, and then we have state. We were one of the host sites for the North Carolina State games this year. And our varsity boys basketball team was one of only 2 private schools that got to compete in the state games in basketball. Actually, this past week. So. Yeah, everything is there's practices and everything goes on throughout the summer, so it's hard to be away for a long time.
When we talked about the Stollers, my fault, we didn't mention your sister. We mentioned her earlier, but she was an athlete too.
She was, yeah. She actually played volleyball and softball at Plattsburgh High School, and really she had a really enjoyable experience there. And then she ended up going to Colby College, and she played softball and volleyball there for a year or two, and then stopped with softball, but played volleyball all the way through, and all 4 years, and did really well. Had a good experience.
And where does she live now?
She's in Boston. She works for McGraw-Hill Publishing in Boston, and really enjoys it.
Wonderful. Tell her that we said hello in the North Country.
I will do that.
Sure, she's well remembered. Let's see. We should cover a couple of more areas before we let you go. Tell you what, we're going to stop the camera because I forgot what I wanted to ask Jeff. I know where I wanted to go, folks. Stick with me here, folks. It's Fox on the Run. I'm Foxy Gagnon with Jeff Stoller. And Jeff, one thing we definitely wanted to touch on is athletic directors do have to have a council where they help make decisions for the conference, and you're involved with that as well.
Yeah, when I was at Oak Ridge, my last 3 or 4 years as the athletic director there, I was elected president of the Triad Athletic Conference, and so basically was the administrator for our conference as well, which is a thankless job. It doesn't pay anything and adds some more workload, but it's fun too, getting to help be involved with making policy decisions for for high school athletics, and that was an enjoyable experience. And ended up when I made the move to Bishop McGuinness, some of the athletic directors in that conference I'd worked with prior. It's a conference of bigger schools, but the president of that conference, the Piedmont Athletic Conference, actually stepped down after about 14, 15 years, and so I'd had the experience in the Tri-Athletic Conference, so they'd asked me to take over as president of this conference. So this is my first year. Had some added workload, which I probably didn't need, but it's been fun too. 'Cause I've been president of the Piedmont Athletic Conference this year, and that involves a little bit of work and some planning over the summer. But it's not too bad, and it's been enjoyable too.
Have you been in touch? Does your job now bring you in touch with athletic directors here in the North Country? Is there any reason that you would want to compare notes or anything of that nature?
I did my second my second year as the athletic director at Oak Ridge. When I came up, I looked up Joe Staves, and Coach Staves was not only one of my coaches at MAI, but he was our vice principal as well, and he was just super. I'm sure he's done a great job as the AD at Plattsburgh High School, but he was I know he's missed as a principal. He was great with kids, and I remember if I had any kind of problem, I would seek him out, and he was super as not just a principal, but a great counselor as well. And I visited with him, and he even gave me quite a few materials, and we talked for a while when I came up several years ago. And I've emailed back and forth with him a little bit. And my last visit this past winter, I got to talk to Coach Pat Goodell at a basketball game. I think it was a Section 7, Section 10 challenge. I went in to watch a game, and Coach Goodell was there, so I got to speak with him. But I've had correspondence back and forth with Coach Staves. And
wouldn't it be nice if we could get a North Country team to head down to your school?
Oh, I'd love it. We are playing. One of the differences between the athletics up here and down there, we have no limit to how many games we can play. So our basketball schedule, we're playing 43 games, almost half an NBA schedule, boys and girls. And but we're going to several tournaments. Our girls are going to the Adidas Festival in Atlanta, and our boys are going to the Krull Classic in Miami. But we also host our own Christmas basketball tournament. It's the Krispy Kreme Holiday Classic, and Krispy Kreme sponsors it along with Triangle Rental and some secondary sponsors. And we are looking for one or two more teams. And I had spoken on the phone with Coach Converse at Seton Catholic and asked if they had some interest in coming down, but they had already met their maximum allowable number of games to play. But I'd love to be able to get a team from up there to be able to come down. There's no entry fee. Everything's paid for. It's a great hospitality room for coaches and officials. So if we could get one team to come down December 26th, 27th, and 28th, that'd be great.
And Jeff, I'm going to make the announcement right here live in front of our cameras. If one of these trips with a North Country team, if it ever comes about, and it's in any way whatsoever connected with Krispy Kreme donuts, Eric and I will be part of that trip. We will be there with our cameras, more than happy to make the trip with a North Country team at our own expense. If Krispy Kreme donuts, do you like those Krispy Kreme donuts?
Oh, they're addictive.
Do you have a particular favorite?
They're well known for their glazed donuts. I think that's their classic specialty. And yeah, they are difficult to put down.
You are so right. I ran into them way out in California at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
And I mean, you buy a box and you can just do a whole box.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Delicious, huh?
Yeah, they are. Well, it was interesting. One of the Krispy Kreme family, their kids, they're on our board. The kids go to our school, and the daughter did a senior project where she went and got to work for Krispy Kreme for a week, and the principal asked me to be one of the evaluators for a project, and so we went up and got to hear her speech and hear her experience. And at the end, her father came in with 5 different brands of donuts that have not come out, Krispy Kreme donuts that haven't hit the market yet. They're just in testing mode, and so everybody got to try some. And yeah, that was an experience all in itself. So.
Jeff, I was admiring your job so much, that put you right over the top. The best job in the world. Jeff Stoller's got it, folks. I'll tell you what. Great. That's so great that you're doing so well, and we're glad to have you back in the North Country these few days. I guess we'll put the lid on our discussion, but continued good luck to everything that you do, Jeff, and thanks for sharing with us today.
Well, thanks, Fox. I appreciate you having me.
Our guest has been Jeff Stoller, the kid from the North Country, and I told you we had an interesting story, and little did I know it would involve in some small way Krispy Kreme donuts. That put us right over the top with this show. Our ratings are going to go right through the ceiling. Nice to talk with Jeff, former card collector with me as well. Do you still have any baseball cards?
You know, I don't, and I wish I really wish I knew where they were. I've had a great autograph collection. I know you helped me develop, and your baseball card collection, and Lord knows where they are. When I made the move to North Carolina, I don't know if they got lost in the shuffle, but I have not been able to locate
Wow,
them.
you had some nice stuff too. Baseball favorite major league team?
You know, it's still. I used to hate the Yankees, but following the Greensboro Bats minor league team so long, I kind of got to like the Yankees. I'm still, as difficult as it is, I'm still a Montreal Expos fan. I still follow the Expos, and everybody where I am is an Atlanta Braves fan because Atlanta's only about 3.5 hours from us. But I still root for the Expos.
Great to see Jeff Stoller. You've been watching Fox on the Run. Thanks to Eric Gagnon for his work on camera. This is Foxy along with Jeff saying, as always, good night, North Country.